Welcome to Fidelity Connects. I'm Charles Denis. Artificial intelligence is on top of everybody's mind these days and all over the media. We're joined today by Louis Têtu. He's the Executive Chairman of Coveo, a Canadian tech success story. Louis has a long history in the enterprise software business. Started late 80s, early 90s at Baan, co-founded Taleo, sold to Oracle in 2012. That was actually a stock on the NASDAQ. He's the Executive Chairman of Coveo, as I said earlier on. He's based here in Montreal and Quebec City. He's on many public boards, such as Alimentation Couche-Tard and CAE. He's involved in private equity deals also. He's an engineer by trade, and with this kind of agenda, no wonder he is also an helicopter pilot. So, Louis, do you mind? Is there some stuff that you would have put in the intro that I didn't talk to you about? I must have missed something.
Oh, well, look, Charles, thank you, first of all, for having me. I'll just say at a high level, I spent my career in international software business, international technology, helped build, founded and helped build 3 public companies, 2 of them on the NASDAQ, one of them here in Canada, that I think we're going to talk about a little more because AI is so topical, so that's probably
So let's start there.
it up.
What is Coveo about? What do you do?
So Coveo, first of all, is a proud Canadian company. We build one large AI platform. We're about 900 employees, AI experts and data scientists. And that platform essentially caters to large global enterprises across the world to help create highly personalized digital experiences grounded in their data. So that might sound a little mouthful, but essentially think about the need, which is now enabled by AI, to power hyper-personalization online. Whether it's you're trying to buy something, you're trying to fix something, you're trying to learn something or innovate, you're online, and now the ability of AI to stitch data in hyper-personalized and prescriptive forms and provide advice is something that you experience every day with ChatGPT. Now, how do you do that in the context of the company data that is secure? So if you're a retailer, it needs to be grounded in your inventory, in your catalog, in your documents, in your customer information. And if you're a bank, it needs to be grounded in your secure information. So that's essentially what we do. We're public on the TSX, roughly around $200 million in recurring subscription revenue. So arguably, probably the largest applied AI platforms company so far in the country. We hope there's many more. And 98% of our customers and revenue is outside of Canada. So we're probably more known internationally than here domestically.
So could you give us an example of an application for, I'm not sure you're allowed to say the customer, but an application of what you've arranged for them, what you've cleaned up for them by using AI?
Well, it's basically divided into 2 areas. So if you think about digital, people are online to essentially transact or buy stuff. So the commerce area, or to essentially consume knowledge. And so the ability to bring that knowledge self-service is a key application, as well as the ability to personalize commerce experiences. So think about big brands like a Rolex or a Nespresso, for instance. So Coveo will personalize these experiences on the global scene, or General Motors or companies like that. Think about companies, large technology companies like NVIDIA, like Adobe, HP, Dell, Workday, or Intel, or more recently SAP. There was a Forbes article just 2 weeks ago about how the Coveo deployment globally at SAP saved them about 1.6 million calls in the contact center by delivering very accurate information, on unsophisticated questions to customers worldwide, and basically that translated into savings of more than 180 million euros annually. So in this case, it's grounding generative AI into secure data. So these are the types of applications. So think about how you can change self-service, revolutionize the way that people can go online and solve more complex problems. Or then when they hit the contact center, how can you deliver information to that agent so that that agent can become much smarter, at answering questions. You might have seen that's right. You might have seen the article about the ARC, the Agence du Revenu du Canada, just this week. When the auditor of Canada said that more than 80% of the times a lot of agents answer the wrong questions to citizens. And so there are two things here. With AI, these citizens, first of all, could go online. We do it for the Taxation Office of Australia and the Taxation Office of New Zealand. They run on our technology. So citizens can go online, answer complex questions that are personalized to them and get their answers, so they don't need to talk to the agent. And then when they do talk to the agents get, much more accurate, information using AI. The same way you do it with ChatGPT, but in this case, grounded in, that's the hard part, is and that's grounding what you do. That.
That's exactly what you
That
do.
is exactly what Coveo is known for. And, we're a leader by analysts such as Gartner, Forrester, IDC, and the market in those types of technology, hyper-personalization, and what's called in technical terms agentic RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. Anyway, for the technology people on the line, but that is essentially what we do. It's a fast-growing market.
We see AI in the media every single day. What's the number one story you're following, or maybe talk to us about the noise you think we shouldn't be following?
Yeah, I think the number one story. First of all, AI is interesting because, personally, I've been 35 years in enterprise software. You're talking to CIOs across the world, and talking about digital transformation and so on. For the first time in my career, I've seen the AI wave, and AI became a technology in search of problems. You'd be amazed at how many companies, people go into companies and saying, AI is your solution, now let's talk about your problem. It's
backwards.
So that's the number one story right now. The number one story right now is that companies are frankly pretty tired of AI talk. They're drowning in experiments and they're striving for results. And so the results are more scarce. Companies have a hard time. First of all, I would say the intuitiveness of ChatGPT, which was not the beginning of AI. AI started, we started in machine learning in 2012 before anybody cared, which is why a company like Coveo, until almost 2020, 80% of our customers were the tech companies because they were the only ones who wanted to hear about AI. Now suddenly ChatGPT comes out, and then everyone starts writing poems on their iPhones on Saturday evening with friends, and infer from that it will be easy to deploy that within enterprises. So, and boards and companies have given a ton of money to IT, to go experiment and try to find use cases and all of that, only to realize that the intuitiveness of something like ChatGPT masked the complexity to deploy that within companies. And so as a result, companies right now are starting to get impatient and asking questions about, okay, where has AI improved our revenue, reduced our costs, improved our compliance, reduced our risk? Results. And that, I think that's the number one story right now in AI. So companies are now getting much more, well, the good news is they're more educated, but they're getting much more pragmatic about it. So the hype, we're at the peak of inflated expectations, I think, and we're going to enter a bit of a disillusionment phase,
okay.
Probably focusing more on the AI engineering side of things as opposed to the foundation models or the hyperscalers or, where everyone flocked to, which is becoming commoditized a little bit.
Just before we got on the communication, the conversation, you were talking about the fact that AI, some certain AI models might become commodities or are already commodities.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? Like, it's obviously not your business. It's not your business for Coveo, but you were kind of saying that it's going to be easily
Well,
replicable.
think of it this way. So foundation models like inference models and all sorts, right? They're not all AI is generative. So you have deep learning, machine learning, and many types of models that and that I would say industry or that science is evolving very, very quickly. It's proliferating very, very quickly. You've heard about DeepSeek, obviously, and you've heard about Mistral in Europe, and more recently, OpenAI open sourced its earlier, GPT models. And so you're seeing a lot of commoditization, in fact, in the foundation models as well as in the infrastructure as a service or the cloud aspect. And I always say, think of it this way. Think of it as semiconductors, for instance. An Intel chip is an extremely complex technology, just like an LLM is. But there's an AMD chip, there's an ARM chip, there's and what I mean is that the fact that it's complex doesn't mean that it's not a commodity. And so LLM services, for instance, are becoming more and more commoditized across the world. You heard about DeepSeek, obviously, not what is true in there and what is not, et cetera, but the reality is the models are there and they're available. And so there's a large proliferation right now of foundation technology, AI on tap, and to a degree, LLMs on tap, inference engines on tap, and so on, is something that is unfolding. What you're going to see, we think, is a next wave from an investment perspective. Initially everyone flocked to NVIDIA and the silicon because they said, well, the world's going to need AI, therefore we're going to invest in silicon, and we're going to invest in energy underneath, right? Because it sucks a lot of energy. Yep. And then we're going to invest in models and so on, and arguably it takes a lot of money, and it's extremely powerful technology. I think you're going to see now a movement of value and probably value creation for investors towards applied AI, whether it's to read tumor images or create new molecules or deliver better commerce experiences or digital experiences or run the next generation of intranets or whatever that might be. The application of AI to drive certain specific outcomes is, I think, where the big value will be created, and frankly, a lot of what we see today, we think, despite the sophistication, think about the Intel chip again, despite the sophistication of a wafer fab and a chip and et cetera, is going to be commoditized.
Super, thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
I hear you're also on a task force, a national task force of AI for the government, the federal government.
Yeah, Prime Minister Carney and Evan Solomon, the Minister of AI and Technology, arguably, set up an AI task force. I think there are multiple dimensions here. Sovereign AI compute is a key topic here in Canada. The adoption of AI by the government is really important. Is clearly something. I was talking about Revenue Canada. You heard it in the news. Earlier. Those are key examples where billions of dollars are wasted and could be saved very quickly by AI. But also, I think it's a bit of a railroad moment for Canada in the sense that we're behind in technology adoption in general. We've always been, and probably a little more risk adverse or et cetera, for a number of reasons. But we're also behind in AI adoption. Canada tends to be a little research centric as opposed to, technology adoption centric historically. And so I think there's a desire at the government level to change that and drive adoption of AI within the Canadian economy, which arguably is not even a choice, which is why I'm saying it's a railroad moment in the sense that, Canada needs to create an infrastructure on tap, so to speak, an AI compute infrastructure on tap that, given the geopolitics, ideally is sovereign in many ways, which means, essentially, authority over data over data residency, persistency, over data movement, over identity, and over compute. To make that available, like a railroad, 100 years ago, and so Prime Minister Carney and Evan Solomon has created a task force to think about these things, to explore avenues.
Hello, investors. We'll be back to the show in just a moment. I wanted to share that here at Fidelity, we value your opinion. Please take a few minutes to help us shape the future of Fidelity Connect's podcasts. Complete our listener survey by visiting fidelity.ca/survey, and you could win one of our branded tumblers. Periodic draws ending by March 30th, 2026. And don't forget to listen to Fidelity Connects, The Upside, and French Dialogue Fidelity podcasts, available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Now back to today's show.
Yes.
So if you were sitting down, let me change gears. If you were sitting down with a financial institution or financial advisors, and you were talking on behalf of obviously Coveo, where would you bring them to think about their business?
Well, forget Coveo for a moment. I think, we're obviously in the space and that is what we do. But beyond that, for us, it's a passion and a conviction that you cannot ignore AI. AI is changing fundamentally the workplace and the world. We could argue all day long whether the good side and the bad side of that, and there's a whole set of considerations about, ethics and governance and all of that. But leave that aside for a moment. You don't have a choice. This is the world we're in. It was invented. It's like nuclear 80 years ago. What would the world be? Maybe the world would be different if we had embraced nuclear a little differently, as opposed to just looking at it, from a downside perspective. Maybe climate change would be different. I don't know, but so think about it that way. So back to your question, if you're a worker these days, you will. I read all of this. You won't lose your job to AI. You will lose your job to somebody using AI. And I know it sounds like a twist, but it's not. It's really an imperative to use that technology, just like we had to adopt automation and we had to adopt computing in many ways, shape, or form. And so if you're in the financial sector, as an example, AI, I always like to say, prior to AI, software was about automation and efficiency. Efficiency is about doing more things, more of the same faster or more consistently. This was software was all about, whether it's supply chain management or software for financial advisors and so on. AI is about augmentation and proficiency. And proficiency means you're not enabling people to do more of the same faster. You're enabling people to do more on their own. And so proficiency is that. It's your ability to gain proficiency at your fingertips, 95% faster on any topic. Think about the tough questions you can ask on ChatGPT and how you get an answer instantly. Well, think about a financial advisor, for instance, or an agent at Revenue Canada, or a citizen online, and how you can gain proficiency. You can handle more complexity on your own much faster. So it changes the workforce. If you're a financial advisor, it changes the nature of your advice. You're much more informed. You can handle more complex. You can run comparisons. Prior to generative AI, you could go on the web and say, tell me about A, tell me about B, tell me about C. That was search. Now you can go on the web and say, tell me about A, B, C, comma, ... and given that my context is X, Y, Z, please recommend which one I should use and tell me why. So there's a big difference here. So think about the ramifications of that if you have a bank with 10,000 employees and suddenly everybody is smarter. Everybody can handle more on their own, stitch content and advice at their fingertips, within split seconds on more complex problems. What does that mean? I'll let you answer the question.
Well, that's fair, but as you were talking, I'm just thinking that the clients are also going to become wiser, more informed.
They are already.
When exchanging with financial institutions or whatever.
I have 3 kids, 31 years old, 20, 29, and 26. I don't want to deal with them. They're way too informed and way too smart. When you pick up the phone with that AI empowered generation, you now have a population that is far more empowered to gain proficiency before they seek your services. And so, yes, that changes everything.
The dynamics.
Yeah, it changes the dynamic.
I saw you wrote an article in 2019, pre-COVID, March 2019.
Yeah.
If you're not in AI, you're behind. What would be the title of the article in late 2025?
Oh my God, yeah, I wrote that article. I remember that article. If you're not in AI, you're behind. I think that's true for the reasons we just explained. The way I look at it, companies, I spent a lot of time in obviously boardrooms and C-levels and, also companies of all sorts across the world talking about AI, et cetera. And the way I look at it, and I always say, is our customers, I would say the smartest of our customers are not in a debate whether they want to adopt AI. They're in a debate whether they want to compete against someone with AI. And I know it sounds the same thing, but it's not. And the answer is you don't want to compete against a company that uses AI. So your question was, what would be the title? The title would be AI or Die. Because I think AI is, and that might sound brutal, but I believe it, because AI creates a quantum leap in competitiveness that you cannot withstand without being in the game. Because it's double-digit gains in workforce productivity, in workforce proficiency, in the ability of people to, in self-service. And you put AI in the customer service, you drop contact center volume by 20% within 90 days. That is what happens. We do that routine. And so it's AI or die. It's the greatest competitive divide in business between the AI adopters and the non-AI adopters. So I would say AI or die. Probably.
Si je vous amène maintenant dans l'environnement du Québec, vous êtes évidemment établi ici, vous avez marché à peine 500 mètres pour vous rendre. Quel est l'écosystème ici d'AI au Québec? Vous êtes impliqué dans des boards québécois, vous êtes impliqué dans des compagnies privées qui sont peut-être aussi ici. Je ne le sais pas, je ne connais pas votre portefeuille. Mais parlez-moi de l'écosystème.
L'écosystème, c'est l'écosystème canadien. L'écosystème au Canada, et ce n'est pas une critique, c'est une observation. Le Canada, historiquement, le Québec n'est pas différent, a été très axé sur le milieu académique et la recherche. On aime la science. Et si on regarde, on a des stars du AI, par exemple, ici au Canada, que ce soit Jeff Hinton ou Yoshua Bengio ou d'autres, souvent des disciples, des élèves de ces grands-là. Et on a créé beaucoup de technologies. Là où le Canada a eu une stratégie, à mon avis, déficiente, c'est de transformer cette propriété intellectuelle-là et ce talent-là en une activité économique. C'est-à-dire que comment on fait pour monétiser, en fait, le produit de notre éducation, comment on fait pour adopter ces technologies-là dans nos entreprises. Écoutez, il ne faut pas se le cacher, on a eu une stratégie d'attirer des sociétés étrangères à venir embaucher des gens parce qu'on pensait que c'était de la création d'emplois. Mais en faisant ça, on a importé de l'inflation salariale, on a importé de la rareté de talent et on a exporté la valeur ajoutée du produit de notre éducation. Et en fait, ce qui est pire, c'est qu'on a payé pour. Alors aujourd'hui, on se retrouve avec un déficit de talent dans les entreprises et les institutions. Alors, il n'y a pas. Si on veut adopter de la technologie, il faut avoir des gens qui connaissent ça dans nos rangs.
Ça semble un contexte exceptionnel pour votre corporation.
Et puis, notre corporation, écoutez, on fait 98% de notre chiffre d'affaires à l'international, mais oui, on a hâte de faire plus d'affaires au Canada, mais là, que voulez-vous? On va naturellement où l'eau se dirige. Où la demande est, l'attraction est. L'attraction, il faut être clair, elle n'était pas au Canada, ça n'intéressait personne. Et on était plus intéressés, on était contents au Québec et en Ontario et au Canada lorsque Google, SAP, Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, etc. venaient s'installer ici. Les gens étaient sur les podiums pour parler d'investissement étranger. Mais ce qu'on ne réalisait pas, c'est qu'on faisait juste amplifier, si on veut, le shortage de talent, de connaissances. On prive les entreprises. C'est essayer d'embaucher des spécialistes dans des hôpitaux. Il y a encore des fax dans les hôpitaux là, au Québec. Alors, pourquoi? Bien, parce qu'il n'y a pas assez de gens qui savent comment remplacer les fax par des meilleures technologies. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on les a exportés. On valorisait l'emploi, peu importe qui était l'employeur et où était créée la valeur. On a toujours eu une stratégie de création d'emplois et non de création de richesse. Je pense qu'il y a des conversations sérieuses dans le moment sur ce sujet-là. Ça fait au-delà de 20-25 ans que les gens dans le domaine de la technologie parlent de ce problème-là. Il était mal compris, résumons ça comme ça. Ça date de l'époque de Bernard Landry. Et donc, il y a un déficit de connaissances, il y a un déficit d'adoption. Moi, quand j'entends, pardonnez-moi, mais quand j'entends, je vais être très direct, quand j'entends les politiciens ou tout ça se lever sur des scènes puis dire « Nous sommes un leader en AI au Québec et au Canada », on passera. Oui, on a peut-être des connaissances, oui, on est un leader en recherche, on a inventé des choses puis tout ça, mais je m'excuse, si on ne crée pas d'activité économique avec ça, et si on prend cette science-là, qu'on les met dans les mains de Google et de Meta et de ServiceNow, de SAP et tout ça, bien, dites-moi comment est-ce qu'on peut s'appeler un leader après ça. On est des locataires et des sous-traitants, on n'est pas les propriétaires.
Est-ce que ce sont des sujets de réflexion que vous avez sur votre task force
nationale? Ça fait partie... vous savez, la stack d'AI au Canada, le Railroad Moment, dans le moment, ça part de l'énergie, ça va à le compute infrastructure, ça va à l'infrastructure, évidemment, ce qu'on appelle Infrastructure Platforms as a Service, l'infrastructure d'AI, et ça va jusqu'au talent, jusqu'au déploiement puis au talent. Alors, il faut penser à l'équation au complet, finalement. Le Canadien Pacifique a fait des rails, mais ils ont construit des hôtels aussi, si vous vous souvenez, parce que ça prenait un écosystème. C'est peut-être une analogie boiteuse, mais c'est un peu ça qui est en train de se passer. Et je pense qu'on va avoir une shot. On n'aura pas deux.
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire par là?
Le monde va tellement vite, on serait trop en retard. Okay. Je pense que c'est un dossier, je pense que le fédéral, du moins, prend très au sérieux dans le moment.
M. Têtu, merci pour votre temps. Aujourd'hui, c'est agréable de jaser.
C'est grand plaisir, M. Charles.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Fidelity Connects podcast. Now, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Fidelity Connects on your podcast platform of choice. And if you like what you're hearing, please leave a review or a 5-star rating. Fidelity mutual funds and ETFs are available by working with a financial advisor or through an online brokerage account. Visit fidelity.ca/howtobuy for more information. While on fidelity.ca, you can also find more information on future live webcasts. And don't forget to follow Fidelity Canada on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We'll end today's show with a short disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Fidelity Investments Canada ULC or its affiliates. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. It is not an offer to sell or buy, or an endorsement, recommendation, or sponsorship of any entity or securities cited. Read a fund's prospectus before investing. Funds are not guaranteed. Their values change frequently and past performance may not be repeated. Fees, expenses, and commissions are all associated with fund investments. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.